Hi, this is Glen Fichardt. Hi, this is Bill Conrad and Glen Fichardt.
Hey, I'm Glen Fichardt. That's Bill Conrad over there.
Today's a weird day. I don't know what it is. Too much multitasking, I guess. But anyway, we'll talk about that in the review. We're doing the review show today of the last 6 episodes of Timeline of Success. So what we're going to do is you get to see us, but we're going to go right away to our desktop and then go into developing the podcast. The podcast you'll find tomorrow, Sunday, and it'll be at Timelines of Success. Again, we're going to bring out the top 6 learning points, our top learning points and success clues that you talk about. Glen is really the expert here. Let's say hi, Glen.
Yeah, hi everyone. We're just going to go over the key elements of success that the guests in the last 6 podcasts spoke about, kind of expand on that and give some insights into what they were talking about.
Okay, let's go down to the screenshot or before we go live up on our show. And we want to share the screen. Okay, we're just going to share the screen. What happened here?
Close that.
That's a little screen, baby screen. I think that's what they see right now.
Yeah, that's what they see right now. So if you want to control your screen, you're going to click onto your...
Right.
Click onto your actual site.
We're pre-show here anyway. This is all pre-show.
Yeah.
So we go, that's what we want to see. So they'll see that, right?
Okay.
So hopefully you're seeing what we see right now as we get ready for the show. We're going to go down. Actually, Glen did show 16. We're going to skip that. We're going to stop with Bill McCready, Entrepreneur Extraordinaire. His show was on July 20th. And let me get up by my monitor here so I can look at it. Hopefully, we don't know what you're really seeing back there in the world of...
Well, how do I find you on... Let's go see where you're hanging out live.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. Just review it. If you just go to...
Is it that one there?
It should be.
Do I add you?
Yeah, add me. You haven't added me yet. Great idea. What we're doing now is we're actually...
So where's your hangout then?
Down below. Live. Just hit it.
Oh, there you go.
Hit the button here. Yeah, I think you hit either one, anywhere in there. Let's see what it looks like. So, folks, we're pre-show, and this is a learning. Oh, very good.
There we go.
So you can see Bill McCready. We're checking the back side. You can bring up that side. And let's see. We're actually recording on the backup recorder, getting ready for episode 22 for tomorrow. 22 will go up Sunday. Everything takes time, doesn't it? Yeah, this is new to both of us.
Well, if you don't start, you never get going.
So let me go down and look at our first episode. So how are we going to do this? You get to see firsthand. We put the, in politics, they say it's making the sausage. You don't want to see how the sausage is made, but we show you how the sausage is made.
Well, isn't there were those 2 magicians in Vegas that made this huge hit by actually showing how the magic happened? Their boxes were see-through, and they were actually showing people behind the scenes.
Yep, and that's what we're doing, seeing behind the scenes. So let's get ready for Timelines of Success. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Today on Timelines of Success, we have Glen Fichardt and myself, Bill Conrad. Glen is going to go over with me the last 6 episodes, and we're going to talk about the key points and elements in those episodes that lead to success. Everyone has a different message. So Glen, want to add a little bit more to that before we start with Bill's show?
Well, Bill, morning, and thank you for having me on the show, and I think this is going to be an exciting thing for, number one, for us to do, and especially for your listeners. You know, they listen to each person, and then we're going to analyze and dive deeper, get a deeper level of understanding and knowledge of what the key elements of success or what each of your guests were talking about.
Right. You know, I want to mention one thing. We hit episode 21 yesterday with Nicky Hernandez. Nick Guy, very successful reggae and musician in Southern California. And there's lessons, every one of these 21 had a good lesson in it. But there's 3 things I want to just talk about that brought it to my attention. I've done a lot of things in my life, and half of them have been organized through traditional schools and classes and learning how to fly military helicopters. It's just a process. General contractor, built homes and subdivisions. But one thing I've learned, and it really is brought to light in this business, this new media business, for me is take everything that you do and add at least 50% more time to give that buffer. That's a learning point. That's probably the number one learning point towards scheduling my time in this business, because there's so many variables.
Bill, I would have to agree with you. My experience has been similar, stepping away from the corporate world where I knew exactly how long things took and I could schedule things down to the minute. And now I go into the entrepreneur world, you're relying on outsourcers, you're relying on freelancers, you're doing all kinds of things that you've never done before. And I'd be like, okay, I'll have this project done in 3 weeks' time. And then eventually, pretty quickly, you realize that maybe that's not realistic.
I started more than a year ago on this concept of building a daily show, a daily episode of successful people and lifestyle. And I wanted to be fairly broad because I want to look at different types of lifestyle. But I only have we launched 21 days ago. It took a lot longer than I could possibly imagine. A lot longer. So anyway, without ado, that's probably the number one learning point, at least in this transition of my life.
I agree with you. The advice I was given in the entrepreneurial world is do your absolute best to figure out your budget and your schedule, like really go into the detail and figure out to the last cent, and then just double it and double the time.
That's the money side.
Yep.
And you have to look at that too. Very seldom does it cost less than you think. Do you come under budget?
You don't want to run out of money before your project gets to the marketplace.
Let me say one last thing. 4 years at West Point, 9 years of active duty, got out. I knew how to build things. I had that engineering degree, and I learned how to build subdivisions and homes very fast. What I didn't learn in the military is how to run books and balance and run the money elements. Those were probably the hardest thing to do. The cash flow, the employees, the payroll. That was the hard part. Building was easy. Building is sort of M1A1. You got a set of blueprints, you follow them, they sort of tell you what to do. You have to figure some things out. But the art of running a business, that's the challenge. That would be the second point that I could bring up from these 21 interviews. The top people who were successful all said it's a lot harder than you think. You really have to work hard.
I would agree with that. In the beginning, if you're going into the entrepreneurial world, the solopreneur world, you're going to have to do those things yourself. And that's going to require self-leadership. And self-leadership is having the discipline to say, I don't particularly like doing these things, but right now I have to do them. And leaders get the job done. So my advice would get big as fast as you can so that you can hire people to do all the things that you don't like doing.
That sounds good to me. And the final element would be what you just said. The idea is once you understand the different elements of your business, is to start parceling that out so you can do the things that you do best. Those are the three things.
Absolutely. There's 4 zones, and I forget which book this one. I think it's from the book The Big Leap. And the first zone is the zone of incompetence. We all have things we're not good at. For me, that's fixing a car. I mean, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do it. Not interested. You pay people to do things that are in your zone of incompetence. Then you have a zone of competence, things that you're as good as anyone else, things that you are capable of doing, you can do them reasonably well. Then you've got a zone of excellence. Now, zone of excellence is probably where your career may be. You get paid really well. You might be a manager, you do this better than most people, and you get rewarded for it financially. And then the final zone is the zone of genius. This is where you just absolutely love what you do. You'll actually pay money to do these things. And that's where you want to go to an entrepreneur. You want to spend as much time in that zone of genius as you possibly can.
Very much. I understand totally. Another comparison too. When I was a young lieutenant, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, most military bases have garages you can work on your car. It's kind of neat. Even though I worked a lot of hours in the military, when I wasn't working or in the late evenings, I could go down there and work on my car. When I run my own business, I should be working on my business, not my car. I could do it then when I was in the military and getting a paycheck and working with soldiers when I wasn't out in the field. But now I can't do that. So I did lose that ability. I guess I could still go work on my car if I wanted to, but there's a lot more important things to do than work on that car.
Yeah, Bill, you said they work on your business, and a distinction we want to make here is a difference between working in your business and working on your business. So many entrepreneurs I know, they work in their business, and they don't get anywhere because they're so tied up in the minute details, all that stuff you spoke about, the bookkeeping and all this stuff. You've got to step back and you've got to work on your business. what is my vision? Where am I going? What's the bigger picture? If you don't work on your business, you may not get to the ultimate vision of what you see for that business.
Right. The E-Myth Revisited, that's the point, is developing a system so your business will run by itself. Now, on the E-Myth, they go into actually setting up everything so you pull yourself completely out of your business. There are people like Seth Godin who actually wants to work in his business on the creative side. So he set up his business, got it in place, but then stepped back in where he can be creative and have someone else managing.
Correct. That zone of excellence stuff, he's hiring out to other people, and he's focusing on the zone of genius. That stuff that he just loves doing. And that feeds him, the creativity side, etc. So that ties nicely into that 4 zones model I spoke about.
Very good. So without further ado, let's get on with the review of the shows this week. So we're going to step back one because you were actually show 16. We're going to go back to 15, which is one day, actually 7 days ago. It's last Sunday. Bill McCready, you looked over it. What did you see as your learning points from Bill?
The one that came out of there, his favorite quote, "If it is to be, it's up to me." This is so important, Bill, and it's about taking 100% responsibility. Like everything that happens in your life is because of you. It's not because of your circumstances or your parents or your job or your background or your education or any of those things. And I've seen so many people, and I'm going to include myself in this category because I was there where I would read a book. Here, Bill talks about the book Think and Grow Rich. Let's take that one, for example. You read the book, and then nothing changes in your life. And you go, what's going on? This book's not working. Because you think that the book is going to change things for you, but it's not. It's what you do with that information. People get coaches and they say, oh, well, my coach is now going to make me successful. Well, that's the wrong approach. Your coach is going to shorten your learning curve, give you everything that you need, but ultimately you are the only one that can make you successful. You have to take 100% personal responsibility for everything you create. It is not outside influences that dictate what happens. And when people believe that it's outside circumstances, then they actually add effect in the world. They get pushed around by whatever happens. Now, when you have this attitude, if it is to be, it's up to me, then you are at cause in the world. You are actually a creator. You personally create everything in your life, and you take 100% responsibility for it. So that is a beautiful quote.
Very good. Now I'm going to one more thing he brought up, and it really was advice to me, I think, as opposed to, but it could be advice to anyone. He said monetize. Now, I've always believed that you have to step back, develop your product, then monetize. But at some point, you really have to, unless you're a nonprofit getting donations, you have to make a system where you have to monetize. Any thoughts on what he said about monetization and the importance of it for a business person?
Well, absolutely. The lifeblood of any business is income. And no business happens until a sale is made. And so many people are scared of this term selling. They don't want to be salesmen or anything like that. You know, Bill, what you're doing here is you are creating value for your subscribers, value for your listeners. You are creating a situation where they can actually learn something. You are giving them things that are going to improve your life. And then in return for that, you're going to have an opportunity to monetize what you do. So absolutely.
Okay, we're going to be going on to the next speaker here. And as we step back, we're looking, Glenn, we're going to pass over you because you're talking, you got enough information.
Absolutely.
So Toby Salgado, Toby, extremely successful in his life. He was working in the .com industry. He sort of came out of construction. He was a painter when he was young, got into .com. But actually got into debt because of the bust. Not a lot of debt, but he built his way out of that debt through a traditional company. He worked as a subcontractor doing storm drain mitigation for big builders. In a very short period of time, 2 years, he took a company from nothing to making a profit of well over $1 million and putting $1.6 million in the bank, hiring about 60, 70 people, very traditional business. So his bottom line was, to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard. You have to take action, and if you fall, get right back up.
And that's exactly it. You know, Bill, there's going to be a system or a cycle that you go through as an entrepreneur. I mean, you're going to take action, you're going to get feedback, you're going to have to make some adjustments, and you're going to take action again. So sometimes that feedback you get results that you don't expect, and some people would consider that falling down. So a lot of people at that stage think that they've now failed and that this won't work out for them. Where people like Toby realize that that is nothing but feedback. That one didn't work out, so now what do I really want? Okay, I know I don't want that. Now this is a perfect opportunity for me to define exactly what it is that I do want, and then go out and get that. I mean, Toby had so many incredible things that he was talking about here, and I can relate to what he does because, you know, we build highways, and we would have the element of what he was a subcontractor doing that, the landscaping, etc. We deal with that, and he spoke about getting up in the middle of the night to go see if there's a blowout, and if you're not washing dirt into the roads and getting fined, etc. And Toby was a perfect example of successful people are willing to do what the other people think is inconvenient.
That's the point right there.
Exactly.
That's the point.
He would get up in the middle of the night and go check to make sure that the wattles are in place. He would clean the office. He would take out the trash. He would do things that most people are just too good to do, and he did that in his own business.
You know, I've also seen that in other parts. In the military, I've seen wonderful officers and senior NCOs up at 2 and 3 in the morning in the rain, out with their soldiers, checking on the lines. That's the same thing, but in a different element. That's a duty element. This is a free market business element. Any thoughts?
You know, my thought on that is you can't push a rope, you have to pull a rope. So those officers you're talking about, I mean, they're leading by example. They're out there in the front pulling their people along. And you have seen from being in the military, getting all the training you got, that there's not a lot of difference between being a military officer and leading a company. The leadership principles are so important, and how you lead is ultimately important. And the most important person you have to lead is yourself. So people out here listening, if they're entrepreneurs, if they're solopreneurs, if they say, well, this leadership stuff doesn't apply to me because I don't have a staff. Well, it does, because you've got to lead yourself first. And if you know how to lead yourself, you can definitely lead people to success.
Very good. And for you listening in on Google Hangouts and on the show today, you can go to timelinesofsuccess.com and look at these prior episodes along while we're talking, or you can go to BluffTV.com and go to the links, and you'll go to the same place. So going on to episode 18 was Ashley Jennings. She is from Reno, and she is 2 years into her business as an entrepreneur, and she really works on startups in a broad base, but her really expertise probably is in girlma.de, which is girl power, and she has a course where she helps young women, empowers them, and shows them how to get into the business cycle. And what she says, keep an open mind to learning always. That was her bluff.
So many good things we can talk about in this one, but keeping an open mind is so ultimately important. One of our needs as a human being is for constant growth. When we stop growing, that's kind of the end. I mean, in nature, things are either growing or dying. We've all heard that saying before, but it is so important. I mean, they've done studies of nuns in monasteries that at 90 years old started learning how to speak Russian so they could study the Russian classics. And at this monastery, these nuns live to 108 years old, etc., because at 90, they're still learning. And what it does for our brain and how it keeps our brains plastic and elastic and actually adds to our life. So learning is ultimate. But most importantly here, Ashley says keep an open mind. And there are two parts to learning. Well, number one, you've got to be willing to learn. And number two, you've got to be willing to accept change. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So we've got to be willing to change how we do things. So if you have a 10 out of 10 willingness to learn, but you have a 2 out of 10 willingness to accept change, 10 times 2 is 20. You had a 20% willingness to actually be open to learn to change in your life. So you need to be a 10 in your willingness to learn. You need to be a 10 in your willingness to change. 10 times 10 is 100. Then you are actually 100% teachable, and you've got a way better opportunity to be successful.
Right. And I want to go back and she says keep an open mind, but it says to learning. But let me talk about an open mind. It's really important especially if you work in this new world environment. We're reaching across the world right now. People listen to us in Europe, different places. In the Middle East, they listen to us. Cultures are different. So keep an open mind to other people's ideas and beliefs. I'm going to throw that in there.
You absolutely have to have an open mind, because I think that we can learn from absolutely everyone that we come into contact with. And then ultimately it's up to us to use discernment to decide what applies in our life and what can we embody in our life. In my products, I often talk about Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee came across to America. In Hong Kong, he had his teacher, his Sifu, his father was Yip Man. So when he came to America, he had no teacher. There wasn't anyone in America that taught Wing Chun, is what Bruce Lee studied. So what he did is he went and learned from absolutely everyone he could. He had an open mind to learn, and what he did is he embodied what worked and discarded what didn't. And most people know Bruce Lee's story. He became an icon in movies, in the martial arts, and he actually changed the world in his willingness to be open to learning from everyone, his discernment to adopt what worked for him, and his intelligence to discard what didn't work.
Very good. Now, as we go from episode 18, which is Ashley, who is 32, we're going into Stephen Key, who is, I don't know how old he is. He's older than I am, I think. But he's had a lifelong passion towards inventing as an inventor and product developer. He's done a lot of different things and had built and designed a lot of different products over his lifetime. But these are not high-tech ideas. They're simple. It's One Simple Idea is his book. And he put down for bluff, it's a numbers game. Come up with an idea, test it quickly, license it, and speed to market counts. Now that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of running some type of a development business.
Absolutely, and there's so many places, and I think this ties into what Ashley said as well about being willing to fail. And I think what Stephen is saying here is that you come up with these ideas and you test them quickly. So you've got to be willing to fail small. And so many people are scared of this thing, failure. Well, you've got to change your thoughts and attitudes about that, because failure doesn't exist. All there is in life is feedback. So you got an idea, let's go test it. And I really liked his concept of, let's figure out for a very small amount of money whether this concept is viable or not. You're not going to take your life savings and sink it into an idea and realize that this idea doesn't work. So fail small. Figure out really quickly with some intelligent testing systems whether this idea is viable or not. And you know what, if it's not, that's the feedback you get. You make an adjustment and you go figure out the next thing.
How do you balance that too? The traditional brick and mortar companies and franchises, some of them take a lot of money. They take every dime a person has. I mean, it's like either I'm going to make it or not make it. That goes contrary to this concept. That's throwing everything into one bucket and saying, I'm going to make it.
Well, we've all heard of people that mortgaged their houses
Yep.
and lost everything. And I think the thing there is people get attached to their idea. They're so attached they're not open to learn. They're not open to listening to people that have been there and done that. They get some incredible advice and they don't listen to it.
Going back, Bill McCready seems to be the guy who took big risks, buying a radio station, venture capitalists around the world. He did a lot of things, though, but he took a lot of risks. He took big risks, and it looks like he's taking smaller risks now, but he's very successful. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, what we just talked about, failing fast. You got to test stuff, that's for sure.
Here's what I would say on that, is that before you do anything, what you need to figure out is what's the worst thing that could happen. And once you figure out what the worst thing that could happen, ask yourself a couple of questions. Can I handle this mentally, emotionally, and financially? And if the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't do it.
Right. Take baby steps.
Exactly. Fail small.
That's where you decide, am I going to keep my job? And it also depends what your responsibilities are. If you have a family, it depends what level your family is. Other people depend on you. You've got other elements you have to deal with.
Exactly, it does depend on that. So that's why you got to decide what's the worst that could happen, and then could I handle this? Is my family going to survive through this if it fails? And the answer is no, then you need to figure out something else.
Okay, going on to episode 20, that was Jonathan Denwood and Mr. WordPress, WP Tonic. We have a small tech show that comes out once a week talking about WordPress and business. But Jonathan had an interesting journey in his life. He's come from the traditional business of a dry cleaning company in England, selling it out for a good profit, and then going into something he loved to do, that he did on the side, which was computers, graphics, and design, coming to the United States and starting a company. So what he puts down is manage expectations to build up content with SEO takes longer than you think. It's not easy. He also said it's not easy. So what he does is he's developing platforms for medium-sized businesses. So they're very expensive. And it takes longer than people think to create that great platform, especially on the corporate business side. So that's where he's coming from, is the time management element. We talked about that earlier in the prelude to the show. Let's go back into time management.
Yeah. That's why I say there's a difference between positive thinking and positive focus. Positive focus acknowledges the fact that there are two sides to everything. There's a negative outcome and a positive outcome. There's good, there's bad, there's light, there's dark, there's up, there's down. So positive focus says I acknowledge the negative, but I choose to focus on the positive. So managing those expectations, you need to understand exactly what the possible outcome could be, or what the possible negative outcome could be, while focusing on the positive outcome. And then, Jonathan said they don't give up. Worthwhile things are harder to do. If this stuff was easy, everybody would be doing it, but not everybody's doing it. You've got to have that perseverance, that not giving up, that following through, that continuing to do the right thing long enough consistently. That takes personal power, personal leadership, the willingness to do whatever it takes.
Very good. So going on to our show from yesterday, actually today, this show came out at midnight, and it's on right now. It's Saturday, and this show will come out on Sunday. But it's Nicky Hernandez. I call him Nick Guy. He's got Common Sense Band, and he's got Nick Guy. He's been in the business for a long time. He started out as a kid in classical music along the beach, loved the ocean, football player, but went to school and got a degree in music, and then got out and created a reggae band, which was very successful. So he had all the basis there to have all the technical skills in place. And he's still in business today, 27 years later. So Nicky's bluff was, keep practicing, never get to a level where you think you are good enough. Always purchase, you gotta start over. Nicky's bluff is keep practicing, never get to a level where you think you're good enough. Always practice and always learn.
You'll see there's some common themes coming through with all these successful people that you interview, and hopefully your listeners can grasp onto that so they can see what are these things that successful people are really doing. So here again, always learning, always honing your skill, keep practicing. So, the old masters used to say that what you want, your goals, they should be more like guiding stars than they are distant shores. So imagine you're on the lake. Here we're near Lake Tahoe where we're sitting right now. And imagine you're paddling across the lake. Your goal is not the shore on the other side. Your goal is a guiding star above you. And the masters say that you should enjoy this journey so much that for every mile you get closer to your target, that target moves 2 miles away. Because what happens is you always adjust that target. You move it upwards. So when Nicky says here, don't think you're good enough, don't take that as a negative. Take it as keeping yourself mentally broke, that you're constantly pushing yourself to more. As you approach a goal, you set a bigger goal. And that's part of the journey. Success is a journey. It's not a destination. You have to constantly be adding more, setting bigger and bigger goals, setting better things for yourself. He also spoke about never giving up. His favorite quote, number 2, was never give up. And there have been a couple of other of your guests this week that said the same thing. So many people, they dabble. They poke it with a stick. It's like finding an animal on the side of the road and you poke it with a stick to see if it moves. So they get this idea, they poke it with a stick a couple of times and say, this doesn't work. Where all your guests here are very consistent, they're saying, don't ever give up.
Glenn, our listeners can go to timelinesofsuccess.com, go to this episode, which is 21, and you can actually play his song Never Give Up, which was in Speed 2. It's a really good little tune. We can't play it here because of the way the laws are written on demand radio. But it's a great little clip to play. Go to that site, play it. And I think you called it right in the numbers, Never Give Up. It's a good one to end with. But I will say two last things about Nicky. I'm terrible about this. Two last things. Another element that we really didn't bring out in this episode, if you look at Nicky, he loves what he does, but he also takes time out to do other things. He was the national skimboard champion for like 4 or 5 years. He was one of the oldest skimboard champions, competing at that level up to like 41 years old. So he did other elements in his life which he excelled at. If you meet his friends, they're all unique, a lot of sports people. And he's done a lot more than just his music, but his music is his main drive. But his life and his lifestyle is so unique. He seems like a really hard-charging but positive person and fun to be around.
One of the greatest books recently, and I think it sold over 20 or 30 million copies, is Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And his 7th habit is sharpen the saw. And that's so important when you're working so hard, is you've got to take that time out to rejuvenate. You've got to take the time out to go do those fun activities that feed your soul. Flow activities. Flow activities are things where you lose track of time. Like if Nicky's out there on his skimboard or he's surfing or whatever, the next thing you know, 2 or 3 hours have gone and you don't even know it. And that is so important. That's part of rejuvenating and sharpening your saw so that you come back enthusiastic, energetic, creative, and just ready to kick butt.
Sounds good. That's a good way to finish up the week. So this is a Sunday wrap. Glenn, anything you want to say as we finish up?
Running through all of these shows, there are a couple of things that just jump out there. It's about taking action. It's about being open to learn. It's about failing small, which is part of that taking action. It's about never giving up. It's about continuing to practice and learn and grow and doing what you love. Those are the main points that jump out at me in this last week.
Well said. Well, hopefully we'll be back next week and we'll do this again.
It would be great to be back.
Thanks, Glenn. Take care. Have a good week.
Goodbye, everybody.
That was, see you out there. Let's go back up on the screen here. Let's see, going back up on the screen. So, I don't know what, that's it for watching the show itself. Are we up right now? Anyway, this is our Google Hangout. It's always fun.
Yeah, it's live. There's a lag on it, but it's live.
So how do we go back to shoot the picture? Well, I think we're going to sign off here. You can sort of see our screen. Glenn, good day. You saw behind the scenes how we produced this episode. There's really a lot to it, a lot of equipment, a lot of systems, a lot of processes. This isn't an easy, it's not difficult, but there's a lot of elements to this task that are put together. This is behind the scenes discussion. Yeah, anything for our Google Hangout folks who are listening to us live?
This Google Hangout's a new technology to me, and I believe it's going to be a way of the future, so you probably want to learn how to do it.
Yeah, I do believe, and I've seen some high-def quality, this could change fundamentally how local TV is broadcast and developed.
Well, my understanding is the moment you finish with this Hangout, it's going to load a video straight into your YouTube channel, and then you have a video of what you've just done.
It saves a lot of time. And we have to get better and better and better with the system. I don't know of anyone teaching this technology yet, so people are sort of just stumbling into it. Interesting. Anyway, thank you out there. We're going to go ahead and hang up on this Google Hangout. It'll be up to watch on YouTube. Plus, you can listen to the show on timelinesofsuccess.com. Glenn, how about your product, your material? How can we get there?
People can find me at secretsuccessblueprint.com. Or they could even email me at Glen, that's Glen, at secretsuccessblueprint.com.
And if you're in the Reno area, you can come down and visit. We'll have a cup of coffee.
Absolutely.
We'll get together. You can have a Google Hangout or something. All right, take care. Thanks. I will. Is that it? Oh, we're back.
Yeah,
hey, no, we're back.
You got to stop broadcasting.
Hey, let's say goodbye. We just, I'm not sure because we were up on the other screen. Say goodbye. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
So you guys know how we do it. I always like to show it. We're trying different systems. This is just a simple Blue Yeti. It's Glen's, and we're gonna try hooking them with dynamic mics. But you definitely need some kind of sound system. So aloha. Have a good week.